Modi to hold the first ever virtual bilateral summit with Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison today. The bilateral virtual summit signifies the strengthening of India's ties with Australia and its upward trajectory. The summit to be an opportunity for the two leaders to review the broad framework of the relationship. Prime Minister Modi says the long pending agrarian reforms approved by the cabinet will have a very positive impact on rural India, especially the industrious farmers, and the long pending agrarian reforms will enable the transformation of the agriculture sector. Says the amendment to the Essential Commodities Act will ensure better income for farmers and would also mean less regulatory influence. Union Cabinet approves historic amendment to the Essential Commodities Act. The decision affects regulatory environment liberalized for farmers. The ordinance to promote barrier-free interstate and intrastate trade in agriculture produce approved. Union Minister Prasar Bharati says the central government has taken a very serious note of the killing of an elephant in Malappuram in Kerala. Says the government will not leave any stone unturned to investigate and nab the culprits. Says this is not an Indian culture to feed firecrackers and kill. Cyclonic storm Nisarg weakens after hitting south of Alibag in the Raigad district of Maharashtra. Mumbai spared the major damage from the cyclone, except reports of uprooting of trees and waterlogging from some areas. 16 districts of Madhya Pradesh on alert for heavy rain. Number of cured and discharged COVID-19 patients in India stands at 1,04,106, while the total active cases stand at 1,06,737. The recovery rate improves further. Global COVID-19 cases continue to spiral up with over 64 lakh people infected and over 3,85,000 deaths reported. Hello and welcome. You're watching Doordarshan News. With me, Nancy Kohli. A top story: Prime Minister Narendra Modi will hold a first ever virtual conference with his Australian counterpart Scott Morrison today. This will be the first bilateral virtual summit of Prime Minister Modi with a foreign leader. Morrison was to visit India in January this year, but the visit could not take place as he had to tend to the raging bushfires in his country. Now, the two prime ministers have already met on 4 occasions on the sidelines of the multilateral meetings in the last 1.5 years. Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Morrison have met 4 times during the last 1.5 years on the sidelines of the East Asia Summit in Singapore, on the sidelines of the G20 summit in Osaka in 2019, then on the margins of the G7 summit in Biarritz in 2019, and then again on the margins of the East Asia Summit in Bangkok in 2019. The relationship between the two nations was upgraded to a strategic partnership in 2009. The framework for security cooperation between India and Australia was signed in November 2014 during the visit of Prime Minister Modi to Australia. That historic visit had also laid an action plan on foreign, defence and security policy exchanges and coordination. Australia, in its White Paper on Foreign Policy 2017, recognized India as the preeminent maritime power among the Indian Ocean countries and a front-rank partner of Australia. During the last 5 years, bilateral relations between both the countries have strengthened and expanded tremendously. Several new initiatives and bilateral or trilateral mechanisms such as the Foreign Secretaries and Defence Secretaries 2+2 dialogue have been established since then. Australia has been supportive of India's position on the cross-border terror and also on asking Pakistan to take meaningful action against the terror groups operating from its soil. Australia also co-sponsored the UNSC resolution to declare Masood Azhar a global terrorist. The virtual summit between the two leaders will be an opportunity to discuss the respective responses to the COVID-19 pandemic, A number of MOUs and announcements are also being discussed by the officials. And let's now go across to our correspondent Amritpal Singh, who is joining us with more inputs on that. Amrit, around 11, that's around from 20 minutes from now, is when the virtual summit between Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Morrison takes place. And like we were discussing earlier as well, many important discussions that are going to be taking place in that important summit. Amrit.
That's right. It's going to be a milestone summit which starts in a little while from now between Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Scott Morrison of Australia, Nancy. The whole gamut of the relationship will be discussed. But the key focus, in my sense, is on the defense relationship, as well as a shared approach to a free, open, and inclusive Indo-Pacific region. Also topping the agenda would be talks on investments and trade, and reviewing the broad framework of the relationship between the two countries, and also how these countries are fighting the war against COVID-19. They would share individual experiences about how Australia is overcoming the pandemic, and how what India is doing, and how the global community and the regional powers can collaborate with each other to overcome this pandemic. As you know, the military relationship between the two countries has been on an upswing for the past many decades. We've seen many joint military exercises, both naval and the army exercises. We could expect the two countries to agree on inviting the Australians to come and join the exercise Malabar, of which the US is already a part of. And, India would also seek some sort of increased access to the huge strategic mineral base that Australia has. As you know, Australia has about 21 out of the 49 rare earth metals and huge resources of that. So India would want to expand its access there. India would look at more investments from Australian companies into India. Australia has already done a lot of investment in India. About $1 billion of the Australian National Fund pension fund has been invested in India. So they would look at expanding the trade ties, the investment, and collaborating more when it comes to taking the bilateral trade to a higher trajectory.
Absolutely. All right, Amrit, thanks very much for joining us for the moment and sharing all those details. In fact, let's also get you what the Prime Minister has tweeted. We'll just be getting you that in just a bit from now. But like we've been reporting that, of course, that virtual summit between Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Morrison, that will take place at 11 this morning, around 20 minutes from now. In fact, there we have that tweet with us. Prime Minister has said, and I quote him here, he's tweeted, "Glad to be joining the first India-Australia virtual summit with you, Prime Minister Scott Morrison. India-Australia ties have always been close as vibrant democracies, from Commonwealth to cricket to even cuisine. Our people-to-people relations are strong and the future is bright." This is Prime Minister Modi's tweet ahead of that first India-Australia virtual summit that takes place at 11 this morning. Moving on now, the central government has taken a very serious note of the killing of an elephant in Malappuram, Kerala. The Union Minister Prasar Bharati has tweeted, and I quote, "We will not leave any stone unturned to investigate properly and nab the culprits. This is not an Indian culture to feed firecrackers and kill. Has sought complete report on the incident. Stern action will be taken against the culprits," unquote. The elephant had died, remember, in Malappuram district on 27th of May, and it was severely injured when the food offered by a man exploded in its mouth. Let's go across now to our correspondent Ajay Joy, who's joining us from Kerala. Ajay, there, of course, a horrible incident that had taken place, showing the cruelty meted out to animals. Really, no mercy for the animals, on the earth. And there were very stern action, strong words coming in from the minister. There of warning of a very stern action by the administration. Ajay, what more can you share with us? We'll connect to our correspondent Ajay Joy in just a bit, but of course this is you're reporting on the horrible incident that had taken place in Malappuram in Kerala, in which an elephant was offered a fruit in which of course firecrackers were which contained firecrackers, and which had exploded unfortunately in the mouth of the elephant, and of course it had succumbed later to it. And now the Union Minister Prakash Javadekar has tweeted and warned of a very strong action, that the culprits will be nabbed and strictest possible action will be taken against them for this cruelty, really, for this terrible tragedy there that had taken place in Malappuram in Kerala. That tweet by the minister will not leave any stone unturned to investigate properly and nab the culprits, clearly sending out a very strong message that such a cruelty to animals will not be tolerated at all. Of course, a complete report on this horrible incident has been sought, and stern action will soon be taken. These are the visuals, in fact, of that spot where that unfortunate incident had happened, where an elephant who was in fact also carrying a baby inside her was met with this fate, where of course this fruit was offered to the elephant, and the fruit unfortunately contained firecracker in it, and that had exploded in its mouth. Very horrible and terrible incident that of course we are reporting. We'll keep getting more inputs on that, but moving on now to some other news for the time being. After hitting Maharashtra's coastal area, Raigad and Alibag with a wind speed of up to 120 kilometers per hour on Wednesday afternoon, Cyclone Nisarg has weakened into a cyclonic storm in the evening. Okay, let's go back now to our story we got to you earlier of the horrible, really terrible tragedy that had taken place in Malappuram in Kerala. Ajay, we were telling our viewers a short while back how this is such a horrible tragedy. It's sent shockwaves to each one of us, that cruelty of this level can actually take place on this earth. But very strong action has been promised, and by the government, and the Union Minister Prakash Javadekar has tweeted that investigations are happening. Investigations will take place to its logical conclusion, and those whosoever responsible, the culprits, will be nabbed, and strictest possible action will be taken against them.
Oh, yes, absolutely a heart-wrenching incident. It has melted the heart of everyone. Even the forest officials who were investigating this were shattered to see the sad plight of that elephant who sought refuge in that stream, somehow as a soothing from the effects, the injuries of the explosion. What we have gathered from the forest officials who are investigating this is they couldn't locate the place of incident so far, the place where this crime would have happened. The issue that is perplexing to them is the wounds were looking like at least 5 or more than 5 days old. So they're unable to locate the place of incident. This particular elephant was located in the border region, the forest border region between Malappuram and Palakkad. So currently, Manarkad range officer is investigating into this crime.
Sure.
And it must be remembered, one thing should be pointed out. This prima facie, they are telling me that this is an illegal practice used by many farmers and plantation owners to scare away wild boars. That they trap these wild boars using pineapple stuffed with firecrackers. So essentially, it is an illegal crime. It may not be meant for elephants, but it is an illegal crime. It's something that forest officials have been warning all these people against so far. And the plantation owners around this area are being probed right now. The forest officials are trying to zero in on the suspects. They have got some suspects, but they are yet to confirm whether they have really got the concrete evidence into framing. So far, right now, cases have been registered as per sections of Wildlife Protection Act.
Okay.
for hunting the elephant. So against unknown offenders, this is how they have framed the case so far, because they are yet to identify the perpetrator so far. And they hope to do it very soon. That's what they have intimated to us by the sources from Wildlife Department.
All right, Ajay, thanks very much for joining us for the moment and sharing those inputs. We'll of course keep getting regular inputs on that. The strong warning has been issued there by the government, and strictest possible action will be taken against those responsible behind this heinous crime. Moving on now, after hitting Maharashtra's coastal area Raigad and Alibag with a wind speed of up to 120 km per hour on Wednesday afternoon, Cyclone Nisarg weakened into a cyclonic storm in the evening. And as per the Met Department, the cyclone had weakened into a deep depression, and further the deep depression over interior Maharashtra moved northeastwards and lay centered about 70 km east of Nashik. It is likely to weaken into a depression during the next few hours. As soon as cyclone weakened, the NDRF team started relief and rehabilitation work. Overall, the worst has passed and the cyclone situation was well negotiated because of timely preparations and evacuations and the coordination, of course, between the center and the state. Heavy rain has occurred at isolated places in Maharashtra, and fishermen have been advised to not venture into the east central and the northeast Arabian Sea. Mumbai was spared major damage from the cyclone except reports of uprooting of trees and waterlogging from some areas. And in Madhya Pradesh, 16 districts are on an alert for heavy rains. The Met Department has put an orange-yellow alert in the state. The districts that are likely to witness rains include Indore, Bhopal, Ujjain, Hoshangabad, Jabalpur and Sagar. Let's go across now to our correspondent Ajit Dwivedi, who is joining us from Bhopal this morning. Ajit, in the wake of that alert that's been issued in Madhya Pradesh, what weather conditions are you witnessing right now, and most importantly, the preparations in place to deal with the situation?
देखिए, वेदर डिपार्टमेंट ने जब से अलर्ट जारी किया है उसके बाद से ही जो है कल शाम से ही जो है बारिश का दौर जो है वो शुरू हो गया है। मध्य प्रदेश के जो विभिन्न जो इलाके हैं, जो महाराष्ट्र की सीमा से लगे हुए जो डिस्ट्रिक्ट हैं, वहां पे काफी असर देखने को मिल रहा है। भोपाल की बात की जाए तो भोपाल में कल रात से ही बारिश का दौर जारी है और अभी जो है बारिश काफी तेज हो गई है और ऐसा लग रहा है जैसे कि मानसून जो है वो आ गया है, जबकि प्री मानसून एक्टिविटी जो है वो जून के पहले वीक में स्टार्ट हो जाती है मध्य प्रदेश में, लेकिन अभी ऐसा लग रहा है कि जैसे फुल मानसून आ गया हो। और ये हाल ओनली सिर्फ यहाँ भोपाल का नहीं है, आसपास जो होशंगाबाद है, सागर है, इंदौर, उज्जैन, बुरहानपुर, ये डिस्ट्रिक्ट जो है वहां पर भी कल रात से बारिश रुक रुक के जारी है और अब जैसे आज सुबह से ही जो है बारिश काफी तेज हो गई है। हालांकि जो हवाएं हैं वो उतनी तेज नहीं है, लेकिन बारिश जो है वो लगातार जारी है और मौसम विभाग ने जो रेड ऑरेंज अलर्ट जारी किया है, जितने भी 16 डिस्ट्रिक्ट हैं जिन पर कि इसका ज्यादा प्रभाव है निसर्ग का, उनमें ऑरेंज अलर्ट जारी किया है। वहां पर जो एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन है उसको भी चेतावनी दी है कि वो अलर्ट पर रहे और किसी तरह के कोई नुकसान ना हो, इसके लिए वहां पर जो एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन है उसने भी वहां पर व्यवस्थाएं कर ली है। हालांकि हवाएं बहुत तेज नहीं है, इससे राहत की बात है, लेकिन जो है बारिश का जो असर है, जो निसर्ग का जो असर है मध्य प्रदेश में, वो अगले कुछ समय तक और देखने को मिल सकता है, क्योंकि जिस तरीके से महाराष्ट्र में जब कल इंटर हुआ महाराष्ट्र और गुजरात के बॉर्डर पे, उसके बाद से ही मौसम विभाग ने अलर्ट जारी किया था कि करीब 50 से 60 किलोमीटर पर आवर की जो हवाएं हैं वो मध्य प्रदेश में चलेंगी और बारिश जो है वो होगी। तो उसका असर साफ दिख रहा है कि मौसम विभाग जो चेतावनी जारी की है वो पूरी तरह से साफ स्पष्ट दिखाई दे रही है कि मध्य प्रदेश के 16 से ज्यादा जो जिले हैं वो निसर्ग के जो इम्पैक्ट है उससे जो है प्रभावित दिख रहे हैं और मध्य प्रदेश के इन जिलों में बारिश का दौर जारी है। कहीं रुक रुक के बारिश हो रही है, कहीं लगातार बारिश हो रही है। भोपाल में कल रात से ही जोरदार बारिश हो रही है, अभी बारिश जो है लगातार जारी है।
All right, so it's been raining there in different parts in Madhya Pradesh, but you are saying, Ajit, that of course preparations are in place to deal with the situation in the wake of the alert that had been issued by the Met Department after, of course, Cyclone Nisarg. Now Madhya Pradesh, they're having its impact being felt there in different parts of the state. Thanks very much, Ajit, for joining us and sharing those inputs. And let's now move on, take a look at the latest updates on the COVID-19 from across the country. A total of 104,106 patients have been cured of COVID-19 so far. The recovery rate has improved Presently, there are 106,737 active cases and all are under active medical supervision. The testing capacity has also increased in the country through 480 government and 208 private laboratories, in total 688 laboratories across the country. Now, to facilitate migrant workers stranded at different places by special trains, the Indian Railways has operationalized 4,197 Shramik special trains across the country till the 3rd of June. More than 58 lakh migrant workers have been transported through Shramik special trains since the 1st of May. Over 50 lakh passengers have been transported in the month of May alone. These trains were originated from various states. The maximum number of trains have originated from Gujarat, followed by Maharashtra, Punjab, Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. The states where maximum Shramik special trains terminated are Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Jharkhand, Odisha and West Bengal. And in addition to the Shramik specials, Railways are also running 15 pairs of special Rajdhani trains from the 12th of May and 100 pairs of special Mail or Express from the 1st of June for pilgrims, tourists, students and other stranded persons. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of the news, but news and updates will continue here on DD News and DD India. Thanks for being with us.